Hey guys, what's going on? Patrick here, Uncharted Territory. Let's go over some stuff today. I think it's an important day to kind of recap and cover some things. So, came into today, went into the weekend, a little bit longer than a little bit longer than I wanted to be. But I was looking at all my positions. We'll go through some of them here, and I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to cut. Every single thing that I had that didn't quite have enough cushion, like FLNC, Circle, Cipher, Velo, still looked extremely attractive, and they still do look extremely attractive. And I wasn't ready to decide, I guess, which ones to cut or not. So I kind of let the market decide today. And it was a pretty big pullback in the market. Well, not in the market, right? In individual names. Per se, right? We're just pulling into the 90-man the Qs, but some individual names, some that I have, were down double-digit percentages, right? So I caught FLNC today at break even. I got into this on at Friday actually with pretty tight risk. Ended up selling at break even as we kind of pushed above and came back in. I had 20 flat on it, essentially 20.08. I think I sold it at 2010. So got rid of that. I had bought TE in pre-market. Off of this gap up with whatever. I had 646 on it, I believe. Came back in and ended up just selling it at like 650 down here. I was like, you know what, I don't want to sit with this when my account's kind of bleeding out. Wish I would have held it. Looks great. Highest volume ever on it today. Circle closed this. Again, I still think this looks fantastic, right? If I were to come in and say, someone new who hasn't looked at charts for 2 months, hey, what do you think of this stock here? They'd be like, wow, that looks nice against this, support gap, little doji-ish type candle at the 20 May. You take out previous day high, go red to green, something on this, that looks actionable. And it was all of these too. Even Velo ended up cutting Velo as well for a small gain. It was like 1% gain on this from 1750 I had. This still looks fantastic. I just needed to de-risk a few things. And just because of some of my other positions, right, were under a little bit of pressure. Again, which I'm not surprised about it by any means. I was just kind of waiting for the market to decide which ones were going to survive or not. Same thing with FCell. Man, I saw a lot of people like chasing some of these OUST and FCell, specifically into the end of the week last week, like whether it's buying up at 34 $35 or whatever. That they probably got really smoked on this today, where I was alerting this at $27, which even still I felt like that was a little bit of a chase myself. Some people in the group were longest from 20, 25, $26, and I was like, you know what, I got to get a piece of this at $27.50, and then I added more at $28.90 or something like that for a $28 average on the nuts. It came back into $30. Not surprised that this is retesting, right? Like that's not out of the realm of possibilities for it to pull back to the 20 May and test. It was just kind of painful because it was like 16%, and I've got a fairly decent sized position in this. Nothing outlandish, but so with that, that occurring, MU being down, 6-7% at one point, BE being down, 8% at one point. What else was down significantly? GLW, right, was down 8% at one point. FCell, right, down 20% at one point. I just had to make some decisions, line it up. So now I'm up to about 30% cash. I think it's 32%, and about 70% in my longs. And a little bit more comfortable and motivated and excited right now. Again, happy with all the things that I have and excited about the market. Let's take a look at the Qs. Really, all this is working off some extensions by pulling back into some of these support lines. 9 EMA, we closed above that. We're holding the $700 mark. I said in Sunday scans that I think it's very reasonable for us to chop around in this 700 to 720 range for 2 to 3 weeks, maybe longer. And we're probably going to undershoot it a little bit, and we're probably going to overshoot it a little bit. Wouldn't be surprised to see it dance around in that area for a little bit. But quite a bit of these individual stocks, guys, got rinsed. Quite a bit of sentiment, quite frankly, got rinsed. And yeah, I'm prepared to be a little bit quicker to get involved. Again, I'm not saying get quick to get involved, but I'm going to test some waters with some things as they show up and they show a presence of buyers in an area to risk against. Something like Cypher, right, which I cut today. I had it at $20, cut it at just below $20. This still looks, really attractive. Something like QCOM, right? This still looks really attractive here against $2. Something like ARM that closed up on the day, up 3%. Rocket Lab, if this consolidates and flags out and gets another little shakeout, it's going to look extremely attractive. MBIS, right, just holding this earnings gap, looking fine. BE even, right, just pulling back to the 20 MA and this gap support as well, right, could give us a nice area to risk against. GLW, pulling back into 175, 176, these previous highs, and this big gap up from when NVIDIA, that big NVIDIA announcement still looks very attractive. I mean, this potentially like really tight risk here. AEHR had this nasty wedging up and shaking out of this spot. You get a presence of buyers to show up in this, 85 to 75 range, essentially at any point over the next couple of sessions. This is going to look really nice, right? This has gone sideways now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, coming into the weekly 90 MA. This is something that we can potentially get involved in sooner rather than later, maybe. Again, it's hard to say because it's just like 2 red days on the Qs up there. But again, I think that's not really showing exactly the full picture. Something like TSEM even holding this 240, bull gap support, looks really attractive. I mean, I've still got plenty of things on my list that I'm very interested in. SEDG, nice inside day. ENPH, nice inside day. Would love for these to get a little bit tighter here to get involved in. My point is, don't get overly bearish. Don't get overly fearful. Don't get overly even excited. I'd say you can maybe get overly excited, to be honest, but just be ready to either take action or stay patient if needed. Listen to the market, and that's kind of why I'm super okay with making the decision not to really get rid of much on Friday, and kind of wait for today. I listened to the market, took action on some names that weren't going to be able to survive the day, right? And let my strong positions remain strong, and with really solid cost basis and really solid entries on my current positions, it was easy to do that, right? OUST still up 11%, GLW still up 11%. That one isn't as fun, to be honest. Micron still up 65%, Bloom Energy still up 55%, ARM still up 49%, TQQQ still up 97%. DDOG, right? I got $8 of cushion on it. BLDP, I've got up 50% on. FCell still up 70% on. So there's a lot of variable cushion that I can decision making I can do. Is it fun to see it off of highs? Not at all. Something like Frog still looks really nice. Remounting the 90 MA, holding the earnings support gap. Something like Twilio with some of these software names still looks extremely attractive here, under $200. Same thing with DLCN, right? After earnings, just consolidating, tapping the 90 MA. These things look just fine. And then you've got still these neoclouds, APLD pulling into the 20 MA, HUT pulling into this gap support under $100, still looks attractive. Cypher, we covered. And then INOD, I think, is still one of the biggest standouts. Look at this today here. This I thought was some very impressive relative strength. There was very few sellers in this post earnings. We did get that undercut of into the high volume close on Friday. Something that I was looking for. I didn't execute on it. Pretty bummed about that. This is one that I'm still watching on. It could be this little 1, 2, 3 scenario where you kind of get an inside day right there, but it's not quite an inside day because you break the highs and then you end up going. Something like this, I think, is possible. You don't want to see it break down tomorrow. That would be not good. Okay. And then we'd need another buy signal essentially on this over here. Right. I think this is super worthy. Something like Dell is building out just fine, although I still think this is a little bit extended from the weekly moving averages. Let's just keep going down the list here to some other ones. HIMX, I think looks good. Again, a little bit long in the tooth still, but nice earnings. Nice earnings gap up. The space stocks still look very attractive. BKSY ended up closing off up at highs. Even SATL still, only was down again 3%, but for a stock like that, it's fine. VOYG is another one that closed essentially on highs out of this trying to come out of this IPO base. Again, I think if you do the work, you can really put together a quality watch list and be ready to find some things that you're interested. If I had to list kind of like a top five off the top of my head that I want, AEHRs up there, Cypher, APLD are up there. Some of which are I already have FLNCs up there, ENPH put in the same category as SEDG, NBIS. What am I at right now? Top 5. Well, I'm already at 7. What else we got? INOD. I still think is one of my favorite ones. DDOG, JBL, ARM, Qualcomm, ATEN, RDW, AMD, Nokia, AAON, Marvell. I mean, guys, I don't want to be the first one to just like blast a bunch of new positions after getting a little bit of cash back in their account, but it's a kind of a balanced battle here between patience and selectivity and willingness still as well. I said over the past kind of 3 to 4 weeks, as the extension talk really started to occur, that hey guys, like I'm still super willing to buy stocks, and really that continued up until last week. And like Thursday and Friday, you started to kind of get a little bit. Well, Tuesday was like, okay, let's take a look at some things a little bit further, and then we blasted to new highs. I was like, all right, guess not. And then Thursday and Friday, started to kind of kick in. Like, hey, I'm feeling a little bit queasy here. Want to kind of do some things. I ended up not doing as much adjustments as I probably should have. So it took a decent hit off of highs for on a number of stocks, but I still like them all. I still like FCell. I still like OUST. I still like HUT, Cypher, INOD, Circle, Twilio, DOCN, BLZE, FIVN, Riot, AAON. I mean, a lot of these I like. I'll send a more concentrated list this evening of probably top 5, top 10 things to really look for. I just kind of went through the scans this afternoon here, and just wanted to kind of send this message of just kind of what I'm thinking. Got off Zoom at like 10:30 this morning Central Time, so 11:30 Eastern Time, and I don't think there was much to do this afternoon. And except unless you wanted to try some supports on GLW, like I mentioned, and something else. So, good luck. See you guys tomorrow.